Hi and welcome to the Mancave Projects DIY channel. So in this video I want to do a review of a course, a free course that I went on a month ago with F-Ball & Company and Polyfloor on subfloor preparation and installation of safety floor vinyl. So before we get into the video, just want to thank some amazing subscribers to the channel. Worried because of lack of videos that have been put out. I'm worried that there's something wrong. Well, there has been. Not been great health-wise over the last 12 months. Developed a lump in my neck. I don't know if you can see that, which hasn't gone away. Been to the GP surgery many times, and they've always just sort of kind of fobbed it off. Said, oh, come back in 3 months. It's just an infection in the lymph node, it'll go away. Had some basic bloods done, nothing found. Started to develop night sweats about a month ago and decided that it was time to go to accident and emergency at local hospital. And I've been tested quite extensively for non-Hodgkin lymphoma. The blood results have come back as being normal, so that's kind of been discounted, but the night sweats are still there, the lump's still there. I'm getting some sort of ongoing tests being done. A few things need to be done now, some scans and one or two other things, but hopefully everything's okay. I am feeling a bit under the weather though, so the production of videos on Mancave Projects and also the other main channel that I've got, which is Demalat, the cookery channel, which is where everything started on YouTube, they've dropped off significantly. So first of all, apologies to the subscribers with that. And I am determined, obviously, to get my health back on track, but also to start producing those videos again because I really enjoy doing these. Right, so a bit of background regarding this safety floor course which I've been on. So I gave up work in, I think, 2018 to look after a dependent relative, my eldest brother, severely disabled. His health was not great. Brought him to our house, didn't want him to go into a nursing home, and basically became his full-time carer. Since he's passed away, been at sort of loose end really of what to do. Didn't really want to go back into sales, although the company I worked for that I left to look after my brother, absolutely amazing, Prometheus Medical down in Hereford. Got treated like an absolute king, well, that's the way I thought anyway. Fantastic people, but really didn't want to get back into that side of things. I'm getting old now, and sales is a young man's game really. So looking round, I've got my best friend is a floor layer, just works for himself. He's got in with a main contractor, some larger jobs that have come in, especially with regard to hospitals. Can't do everything himself, so I've been a couple of times to help out as a labourer, but stood about most of the time once everything's been carried into the job, because I didn't really understand the process at all of subfloor prep and then actually putting the vinyl down. So one thing I wanted to do was to become more productive if that's what I was going to do in the future. Looked around for some government help, maybe some retraining, absolutely nothing out there that I could find anyway. And then came across a company called F-Ball & Company, which didn't really know a lot about, but they are one of the main suppliers of screeding and adhesives in the flooring game. And they were offering a 4-day free course. They call it the apprenticeship course, and it was basically they were going to teach, or this is the way I thought it was, going to look at the preparation for the subfloor and then maybe observe some vinyl being fitted. The one thing I wanted to get from this course is to understand the process from start to finish, and then hopefully if I go back on site I could become more productive. So that's the only thing I really wanted to get from the course. However, being a completely free course, there's got to be a catch, hasn't there? So I envisaged it being like when you go to Spain, back in the day when they had timeshare everywhere, offered, yeah, let's go out, have a look at these timeshares, you get free sangria and that, or like the linen factory, you go to a linen factory, free sangria, just go and have a look, you can buy if you want to, you don't have to. And then you get on the coach and it's literally hard sell from start to finish. No offence to F-Ball & Company, so it was an F-Ball & Company and Polyfloor course. The Polyfloor rep was there as well, or the trainer was there, so it was a sort of a combination of the two. No offence to them, but I thought that was going to be a very similar situation, but I couldn't be more wrong. Right, so a review of this 4-day F. Ball and Company and Polyfloor training course, free training course. Everything is provided for you, so you only have to go in your obviously work clothes. You have to dress appropriately, but every single thing is provided for you, from free refreshments on lunch, even taking the guys out for a meal at night. One of the nights, I think it was a curry. I didn't go because I was travelling quite some distance there and back. Didn't really want to cost me that much, so didn't have any accommodation. So I was travelling there and back, but they even took them out on a meal. And then at the end of the course, you get a mixing bucket, and in there over £150 worth of tools. Absolutely phenomenal. With regard to the course, I would have been happy paying £600 for that course. So it seems to be that the average price of a paid course from one of these supply companies is around £600. I gave the course 10 out of 10 being free. If I had have paid £600, I'd still be giving it a 10 out of 10. In the fire service, I've been on many courses. 95% of them absolutely fantastic, but there were some dreadful courses where basically you're battling just to stay awake, and cost the fire brigade a lot of money. This particular course, you're into a training environment. You get your own bay. As I said, everything's provided for you. It's about 5% of it is PowerPoint, which there was no way of getting around that. It had to be PowerPoint because you're looking at the adhesives and the screeding and sort of the technical aspects of that. I don't know how you could deliver a course with that sort of content and not have some sort of PowerPoint. But after that, it was all practical, and the instructors absolutely amazing. The actual way that the course was structured is a formal structure, but delivered in a very casual way. But every single point was met and delivered in a obviously a professional manner. So 10 out of 10 for that course. I'll put a link in the description below to actually look at the course if you wanted to. I would recommend it. Who's it for? Definitely for apprentices, but also for people who've been in the flooring game a long time, want to do some sort of refresher, or want to actually get into safety flooring. One of the reasons I quite amazed at the safety flooring is when I see my friend cutting vinyl, and you know, you're talking about long lengths of vinyl which are very expensive. One wrong cut could mean that that piece of vinyl is scrap. So amazed at the skill level, and my mindset is I just want to learn new things all of the time. So the course, absolutely fantastic. What I'm going to do now is, let's see, it's been a month since I've been on the course. I've been on site at the hospital a couple of times, just doing some basic labouring and sanding down and screed and that type of thing. Never done any fitting in my life. If you have a look at the Mancave Projects channel, you'll see never even discussed carpet fitting, let alone safety flooring. So I've never had any experience of it. Just be interesting to see if a complete novice can go on a 4-day free course, come back and actually do something. See if I can just lay down some basic vinyl onto a form, like a training form, and see how I go. All right, so firstly, a little bit about the instructors on the course. So we had Steve Lane from F. Ball and Christopher Landon from Polyfloor, two very experienced fitters, two very experienced trainers as well. Delivered the course in a professional, structured, but an informal way. It's not an easy thing to do, but they managed to do it to perfection. So the instructors, absolutely superb. The actual facilities, excellent. Couldn't have asked for any more. Every fitter or every apprentice on the training course had their own bay, as much equipment as they needed. So yeah, 10 out of 10 for the course, absolutely fantastic. Right, so this is my training mock-up. All of these lines are basically I was just figuring out where to put these. So you've got two 90-degree angles, an external mitre and an internal mitre. The only things I have done is on the course it's about 70% subfloor preparation and about 30% fitting the vinyl. I didn't even think we'd get round to doing any vinyl fitting on the course because literally only 4 days. So the only thing I've done, and I've managed to scrounge this off that friend of mine, is so basically you've got 2 pieces. You've got a co-former which goes on the bottom, and then you've got a capping which goes on the top. I haven't got any capping because my mate really specialises in wet rooms, and they use a different type of capping for that. So this is just what was basically scrap off his van, and all I've really done is, because I struggled to even cut the co-former, I've used this template just to keep practicing and getting the angle right, and then I decided to use a piece of old gutter, and once I'd got the angle right, I've actually made these forms. So to do that, I may use that on this video, I may not, and then a separate form to cut the angle on the internal mitre, and again I'll go through that. So I might use that, I might not. That's really the only things I've done, and also tried to see what adhesive I had in-house to save money, which would actually stick the vinyl down. I mean, you probably see remnants of silicone sealant and stuff like that. So what I've done is I'm going to use some spray contact adhesive. So the first job we want to do is to place our co-former into position, and we want to make sure we've got 2 ribs on the back of this, and they have to be in contact with the substrate, so the wall and the floor. If not, we could end up with that sort of situation where it's way off, and then once we put the co-former in there, it's not going to line up here. So try and be as accurate as you can with this, and then I'm just going to draw a line, and then draw a line that way once we get it in place, which I've already done previously, and that will give you the angle we need to cut the co-former at, because again this might not be a true 90 degree, so this will give you the exact angle to help me, because I'm a complete novice and I don't have any tools other than what was given to me by F. Ball and Company once we did the course. I've just made some templates. So this is a chopping board. Apologise to my wife now if you're still looking for this chopping board, because I took it. So this is just a obviously an angle. This is 45, but you know, depending on where this point meets up, you know, we can alter that. So we draw a line in there, and obviously one on the inside as well, same process as the outside. So this will give us our cuts for the co-former. So we put our co-former in place. Again, making sure those 2 ribs at the back line up. Going to take our concave blade. We're not going to cut all the way through this co-former, we're just going to score it. And the first thing we do is we line up with the wall, and we go down vertically about 3 or 4 mil. We then angle the blade so we're in line with this intersecting line, and then we just draw this straight out. Not too much pressure, don't want to go all the way through, because with the co-former, once you bend it, it will snap off. Next thing we want to do to make sure that the co-former fits nice and flush with a decent join, just turn it over, and very carefully we just want to take those ribs off just at the back, otherwise they'll come together and sort of widen this gap, just interfere with this gap. Again, blade back in its holster. I cut myself twice on the course, just minor nicks, and at both times it was because I had the knife in my hand and I was talking and waving it about and didn't realise. Possibly the majority of cuts that you see with fitters, it might be a thing for a complete novice, or it just might be that's what happens. So once we've done that, next thing I want to do is obviously cut it to length again. So concave blade again, just score down the co-former, back in its protective holster, and again just fold that in and snap that off. So that's our first piece. Next thing to do is we want to put this piece in, and the thing about the internal mitre is we don't want to create a mitre cut on both of these sections, because potentially you'll end up with a cavity inside. And I did have about, I think we were given about an hour to do some heat welding, which is really, I found it really difficult. And one thing I noticed is when we get down to here, if this cut isn't right, then the whole joint opens up and your weld rod just disappears into there. So the technique for doing this is to push that right in like that, obviously making sure that those two ribs at the back are touching both substrates. Concave blade again, go down 3 or 4 mil, angle the blade in line with that, with this line, and then just score the co-former again. Take that off, and then again we're going to just get rid of those ribs safely. Hand, non-cutting hand behind the blade, back in its holster so we don't cut ourselves. And then we've got that piece, and we've got that piece. So once it's glued into place, that'll be good. Now we want to do this section. So for this piece, you basically take this section and just put it straight into there. I'm just going to modify it slightly because there's a bit of a point on there, and then and I'm going to take those ribs out the back, but that's basically what you do there. As I said before, I found that this joint here has to be absolutely perfect, or as good as it can get. So again, just take these ribs off the back, and then I'm just going to take that point off. And then that fits sort of nicely into there. So the next thing to do is, they seem to use contact adhesive on this part. On the main floor, once it's obviously been prepped, use something like F-ball F44, F46, which is like almost like an emulsified glue. But the section where the co-former goes and obviously the safety floor goes up the wall, use contact adhesive. So because I can't afford a big tin of contact adhesive, and when I've seen fitters applying contact adhesive to the wall and the floor, they usually use a cheap paintbrush, or more often than not a piece of carpet. Of course, being contact adhesive, you have to cover both the wall and the product that you're going to stick to it. And then we're just going to leave this to become touch dry to get the best adhesion. I'm also going to prep this, so once I've taken all these bits off that have stuck on, I've been cutting off, I'm going to put some contact adhesive on there and also on the piece of vinyl that I'm going to use to do this training with. Alright, so while that contact adhesive is going off and before I actually coat the underside of this piece of vinyl, just a little bit about this and my experience being a complete novice. So obviously when I've measured this, this is the measurement I'm interested in, which is obviously the floor width and how far we're going to go up the wall with some spare as well, and then obviously this across here. Cutting or measuring and cutting vinyl floor, I struggle like mad cutting vinyl on the upper surface because it seems to blunt the blade quite quickly, and also the blade gets deflected because within this safety flooring there's aggregate which is scattered into it. So I find if I can, obviously when we're fitting it we can't, but while it's on the roll, actually marking out and cutting it on the underside, especially the concave blade, seems to last a lot longer. So if you're a fitter, you agree with that. If you don't agree with that and I'm doing something wrong, then please put a comment below the video, because this video is not just about me talking about the course and what it's enabled me to do, but I'm also looking for tips as well from professionals. So we're going to cover the underside. With our contact adhesive as well. Again, as with the template, we're going to be letting this to go to touch dry. If you don't let it go to touch dry, it can be a nightmare. In fact, it doesn't even work properly as far as I can see. If we lay contact adhesive wet on wet, it just pulls off straight away. Whereas when it's touch dry, it's an instant grab. Right, so this is touch dry now. So we can start to place our co-former. Again, it's touch dry on the back of the co-former as well. One thing I will say is this co-former's come off a van. Personally, I would store it as best I possibly could because it does get deformed. So put in our first piece. Put in, oh, it's not that one. Put in our second piece. And our final piece. Again, trying to ensure that those two ribs at the back are in full contact with the substrates. So, I don't know if you can see it there, that's not perfect at all. That's a better fit, but this isn't. This is where my templates came in. So as a complete novice, I made these out of sort of half round gutter. And when I use those, it does give a much better cut. So if you're an apprentice, you're struggling to cut the co-former neatly, I would suggest keep cutting the co-former till you get it perfect. Place the co-former on top of the piece of guttering, scribe it, and then sort of cut it out. And I cut these out with a Dremel. And that one especially just gives a perfect cut. Right, so we've got this in place now. Next thing to do, obviously I need some contact adhesive on the face of this. I could have put it on before, but it just gets really messy for me. And again, just wait for that to get touch dry. Right, everything now is touch dry, so it's time to apply the safety floor, the scary bit. We're working outside, it's about 12 degrees, it's only March. So I'm going to be using a little bit of heat, not too much. So I do find that I can work a lot easier with this type of material if it's warm. Not too hot, we don't want to overheat it. So I'm using the Parkside digital heat gun. This is about 30 quid from Lidl. Absolutely fantastic piece of kit. So I've set the temperature to 350 degrees centigrade, so hopefully I won't burn this material. So we take our piece of safety floor, and just before I carry on, disclaimer with regard to F-ball and polyfloor. If I do anything wrong, which is either it looks dangerous or it's completely incorrect, it has nothing to do with the training that we received on that initial training course. It's either I forgot what I was told, I didn't listen to what they were telling me, or I'm an idiot. So it's completely my fault. So we take our piece of safety floor, getting an initial contact there, and I'm just going to be heating the safety floor so that we can run it up the co-former so it touches the entire co-former. What we don't want is we don't want this sheet vinyl to touch the wall before it's formed perfectly on the co-former, because any cavities, if it was on a site, you're definitely going to get pulled up on that. And when we come to weld, groove and weld, then it's going to make the job a lot harder. So we're up to temperature. Just going to be warming this nice and gently. And actually pushing it down and rolling it into place. So it's made full contact with the co-former, and then we're going to run this up the wall. I think the professional fitters have a like a stubby roller or something similar. Bit of advice on that as well. So a stubby roller is about 50 quid, 50, 60 quid, which is a ridiculous amount of money. You can get massage therapy rollers which look identical to a stubby roller, made from either stainless steel or brass. They're about 12 to 15 pounds. It's basically a ball with a handle that you could do. They look virtually the same. So if you want to save some money, go and buy one of those and try one of those out. So we've now formed this up the wall. We need to get that piece onto the back part of the other wall. So we take our hook blade now, because we want to cut right through the actual safety floor. I'm going to peel this back, hopefully you can see that. So this is the line of the wall. However, if this is not a 90 degrees, this part of the wall could actually be bent in. So I want to allow a little bit of waste, because this section of safety floor will actually come onto the back wall. So hopefully you can see this. I've got an imaginary line here. I'm going to come in maybe 1.5 centimeters and cut straight down, making sure that I've got a nice sharp blade to do that with. Again, as a novice, I really struggle with this safety floor to cut it. So that's my initial cut. Next thing to do is I'm going to come across and then straight down the wall to the top of the co-former. So I've come across here. I don't know why the camera just stopped. And then hook blade into this. I'm not sure if I can video it, but I'm just looking down, keeping that blade in line with the wall to the top of the cove former. Like that, not the best line in the world. The next thing I need to do is to this almost 45-degree line, I just need to come down that cove former so this can lie flat. Now, as a complete novice, I just need to remind myself sort of a visual of where I'm coming, and again, that's where this comes in. So use a hook blade again, not dig right in. So we're going to be using this first part of the hook blade. I'm going to bend this back and hopefully try and see where this blade is going. This is where I really struggle with this. And when I first saw my sort of best mate working with vinyl, and he's cutting down huge lengths of vinyl with one overlapped over the top of the other, I'm just amazed at how accurate he got it. So this could go completely pear-shaped. So regard to holding the actual knife itself, I'm trying to hold it as close to the blade as possible to get as much control. Holding it out here, which I started to do on that training thing, and I was corrected very quickly, the blade just seemed to go everywhere. So that doesn't look too bad. I'm going to be mentioning about struggling with stuff all the time, all the way through this. We'll just see how far we can get with this. Really struggle with this bit. So what will happen is, because we've got obviously different planes, this is going to gather up here and create a bit of a mess. I must admit I do struggle with this, and this is the bit of the video I'm not really looking forward to. But what I'm going to try and do is push this part of the safety floor into that corner and create almost like a crease, so I can have a relief cut and take some tension out of this. Again, really important for me anyway. I don't know how professional fitters go on, but I'm probably going to overuse heat in this situation. But it's the only way I can get to work with it with any degree of success. So I'm actually going to leave that going, but obviously safely. Get my finger and see if I can manipulate this once we get sort of down here. Again, I'm going to need more heat. Trying to keep it off that wall as well, or that back plate. Right, so kind of got there eventually, but that definitely wasn't pretty. Really struggle with that, as you can see, as a novice. I'm sure if I was doing this time and time again, I'd realise that there was a much better technique. Just pushing that into place. At no point on that course as well do they tell you to use the blade for anything other than cutting, so you might see some fitters doing this, which probably nothing wrong with it, but they definitely don't want you to do that on the course. So once I've got this into the corner, and I am worried that there's a little bit of a cavity there. So the next thing I want to do is make a scary cut. So I'm going into the corner. I am trying to cut on this side of the line so I don't cut too much off. I'm conscious of trying to keep my fingers out of the way as much as possible. So one of the things that I've forgot on the course is blade choice. I don't know if it's personal preference or whether, obviously apart from the basics of scoring with the concave and then cutting through with the hook, whether there's actually a firm set procedure for doing things like this. Do you use a hook knife, use the concave? Right, so let me turn this off. So that's into the corner. Quite happy with that cut, believe it or not. I do think there's a bit of a cavity there though, and this is definitely what a professional fitter doesn't want to do, and that once you've got a decent contact with the adhesive to then have to peel it back. But again, this is my complete inexperience. The problem with creating that cavity, apart from obviously it may fail once I come to, if we do get that far where I'm going to be actually welding it, any cavity there and the heat will just go straight through it. So once we've got that, because I've got very little of this vinyl left, I'm going to be using this section to create this fillet. Which isn't ideal for me as a non-fitter because this has now got contact adhesive on. What I would prefer to do is get a separate piece that doesn't have contact adhesive on, dry fit it, and then work from there. So the thing, again, this is probably way more advanced than I should be doing, but struggled again trying to get this form, trying to fit a piece in here. So what I have done before the video, I laid some vinyl in here, cut it several times, threw different pieces away that didn't work, and eventually came up with a shape that was half decent. With the other part of the chopping board, made this template. So what happens with this template is I'm going to fit it in here. I'm going to use it, this profile and this profile, to cut these two. Again, if this was longer, you can still use the same profile, you just move this along. The front and back profile is really what you need. I'm also going to use this template to mark out where I need to cut on here, and then hopefully the two pieces will fit in. Because this is a flexible plastic chopping board, if I heat it, not too much, but make it more pliable, I can push it in and get a better fit. Right, so that's a lot more pliable now. I can push this in. Take our pencil. Mark this out. And then use our concave blade. And again, because of my inexperience, I don't really know when the blades are getting blunt. I'm just going to change it anyway. Another rookie mistake I made at the training centre is, because these blades have a little bit of oil or something between them, twice I did it, put two blades in at the same time without even realising it. So if you're not familiar with this type of knife, there's a magnetic plate on here which allows the blade to click in nice and easy. You've got a storage place here for different blades. This is called a dolphin, but I think there's wolf, there's all sorts of different ones. Just very nice to work with, obviously ergonomic, and quite quick to change the blades as well. So the next thing I'm going to do, freehand, I'm going to come on the inside of this line because I think that's gone over too far, down here, and then obviously trim this. And we'll see how we go. Again, this is the scary bit for me. So just put that back in there so I don't kill myself. Let's see how far we've got with this. I'm going to take the hook blade now. And just gently into this cut, just to finish it off. And then again, from a professional fitter's point of view, I don't know if this is the correct statement, but I tend to find more control with the hook blade than I do with the concave, and even less with a straight blade. Again, I'm not picking this vinyl up, or tempted not to pick the vinyl up with the blade, damage the blade in any way. It's coming back. And we just need to choose the concave for this. Again, there's got to be a much better way of doing that, but as a complete novice, I'm doing the best I can. So that's our piece cut. The next thing to do, going to be using this and hopefully putting that there. So take our hook blade, watching all the time. So again, if I want to cut a straight line across there, I'm going to find it almost impossible to do it from here. But if I fold this over and keep this top edge resting on the wood, I'm hoping I can take that across. And my hand is up here, it's not there. A healthy respect for these blades is definitely what's needed. That's not a bad cut at all. Don't know how they do it with when the former's on the top, how they go down the centre of the former without marking the capping, sorry, and not marking the capping, or God knows how they do that. So we've got our piece of vinyl that we are going to be placing in there. Obviously, if this was a job, what I'd try and do is try and match the grain up if I had plenty of material. Right, so we just need to mark this out now and cut it. And because I've got contact adhesive under this piece of safety floor, I don't want to place that on top of the other stuff and have a transfer of adhesive onto the finished side of the safety floor that's already in place. Concave again, but what I might do is use a straight edge. So I've got this, I haven't got any special tools really with regards to this, but that square is ideal because you can actually take this off and use it as a ruler. So let's move this around. so I can work. Concave again. Really, really important. Keep your fingers out of the way. So I'm coming down to just past fingers. I'm going to bend this material back. And again, another thing I struggle with is following this line, which seems really easy. But trust me, for somebody like me, it's not. Good indication for me though is if I meet a lot of resistance once I've done the initial cut, I know I'm going slightly offline. Oh, that's that one. Fold this in. Same again. Marking its holster so I don't kill myself. Right, gotta be. So this is the problem now. This contact adhesive. So what that tells me is I just need to take a little bit more out of this side. Getting this warmed up again now, so obviously be as flexible as possible. Put that into there. Right, as far as this goes, this needs trimming, so let's, where can I go? Right there. Right, I want to remove some of this. Again, hand well out the way, running the blade along the top of the wood form. Two hands for that. And the next thing I want to do, I'm replacing the hook blade. I'm going to get a new one. Yep, both sides of that has been used. Making sure I only take one. I've got to be the only person that's put 2 blades in the knife. Right, so let's get to this side. So what I'm going to do is put the hook behind this and just very carefully trim this down. Like that. And then what that gives you there, let me put this away. I'm so scared of those blades. What that gives you then, it gives you like a groove. So I'm hoping I won't have to groove this part out at least with the X-Acto, because again, you do that on the course as well and they are a nightmare. Right, let me show you the fitting, which isn't brilliant up there. I think it needs a bit of a groove. Right, so, because I want to show you warts and all, I'm amazed we've even got this far. I really am. Let's bring that down. We've got a nice tight fit there. This is a little bit open, but don't forget we're putting weld in, or I'm going to attempt to put weld in here. So that is the first part done. Quite pleased with that actually. Again, this is a warts and all video, so if it had gone wrong, I promise you I would definitely have produced a video just to see how far I could get, having been on a free of charge F-ball and polyfloor safety vinyl fitting course. Right, so I've been given some tools to practice with from my mate. One of them is this. This is a grooving tool, so I think it's called a P groover. This blade looks as dangerous as the blades for the knives. So when I've tried to do this, I really struggled. Like with most stuff, I really struggled because either wasn't pressing in deep enough and it was skipping all over the place because of these harsh aggregates that are in this safety flooring, or I went completely too deep and straight through the vinyl. I think the technique is to go maybe 2/3 of the way through. So what I'm going to do initially, I'm just going to practice to see if I can get the grooving, because I don't want to spoil this now if I can help it. And what I'm going to do with the P groover is down there, across there and down there, and then I'm going to work out how to groove these in. Right, so grooving, that wasn't pretty at all. Really difficult. Struggle like mad with this. I don't think it helps that this blade looks a bit worn. In fact, it looks very worn. But I'm not making excuses. Of all the things I've done in this video, that grooving was definitely the most difficult, and a big rookie mistake here as well. I put the straight edge onto the join, but what I didn't do is allow for the grooving tool to actually groove both parts of this. So it's literally just grooved one part. My fear is if I move this across now and try and groove again, this actual groove which I've then created is going to be a lot wider than the weld. So this is definitely not up to British standard, but again with practice, I'm hoping I'm going to get much better. So that's where we are. Next thing I'm going to do is hot weld it. Now I haven't got, again I'm just scrounging little bits. I haven't got a welding rod that's the same colour as this, so I'm going to be using grey. However, I think it's going to be good because it'll highlight the mistakes or hopefully if there isn't any, but if there is, it'll just highlight where, you know, where I'm going wrong, whereas if I had the same colour it might just blend in too much. So I've been borrowed a heat gun. I'm hoping I don't break it. Some weld rod, but again not the same colour. Let's crack on and see if we can weld this. Right, so this is the gun that I've been borrowed with the nozzle at the end. Leicester, on off switch there, temperature setting there. I'm going to be setting this to about 3.5, I think, from what I can remember. I just hope that's not too hot. And this is the weld rod. It looks like it just comes from the back of a van, so I'm hoping this is okay. I think this is what I'm not sure about, because we only spent about an hour or so on this. Do I weld all the way down and across there and finish there, or do I treat each one as separate pieces? What I think I'm going to do, and hope this isn't wrong, I'm going to treat each one as separate pieces. So take our first piece of weld rod for there. So the things we were told about this type of gun, one is obviously while it's on, you've got extremely hot air blowing out of the end. Don't have it near to any furniture or anything it could damage. Second thing is, we put it on temperature, we switch it on, leave it to warm up for 5-10 minutes, something like that. And then really important, when you finish with the gun, place the heat control to 0 and leave the gun running until cold air comes out of the end, or at least cool air comes out of the end. Otherwise, if you keep switching this on and off, once it's up to temperature, the element inside will definitely go, and I can't imagine to be cheap to replace. This particular piece of kit, I think they were about £500 now. It's a ridiculous amount of money for a heat gun, and I might even do some experimenting to see if I can attach that nozzle to here somehow and see if you could actually use a temperature controlled standard heat gun to do it. But let's get this out of the way first. Right. So I'll leave that to come up to temperature. Right, a couple of things I forgot, I've just remembered before we start. So masking tape. At the end of each run, to stop the vinyl from burning beyond there as you come down with the heat. Second thing is, these nozzles are offset, so even while it's running, if you place a straight edge in there, you can actually alter the angle at which you're going down at, so it's set so that I'm more comfortable now in actually running down with the weld. First thing I'm going to do, just warm the start of that run, replacing the rod into the gun, just letting the end warm first and then running down, and we'll see how we go. And the technique, which I probably won't get right, is as we start with the run, we push the rod in so that we're not dragging the rod down the actual seam. So in, heat up to the end. Yeah, that's the first one. Didn't really attach at the top, I'm not sure what to do about that, but the rest of it seems okay. I'm going to cut that off. Oh, by the way, I haven't got the spatula. That didn't come in the kit that I was given to use. So I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to do in this case. I think what I have to do now is try and get rid of some of that so we can carry on with this. So I'll work out how to do that now, and then we'll carry on. Right, so unfortunately the video camera didn't work when I was doing this last piece, but I must admit, really tricky to get this lined up properly at the start. So what I've done now, put the heat down to 0, left this to run for quite a few minutes, and that's all cooled down. What I'm going to do now, use whatever implements I've got to try and skim that down and tidy it up. Right, so there you go, finished job. Nowhere near perfect, probably nowhere near where it should be for site work, but this is the first time that I've done the whole process since coming from the training course a month ago. And as I said earlier in the video, I don't do this for a living yet, and I haven't touched any safety flooring since the course. I think I'm going to retrain now. That course has definitely helped me decide whether, obviously, flooring is what I want to get into now and retraining. It definitely is. With regard to this job, probably the most difficult thing is using the X-Actos and just finishing this off. Obviously, I haven't got one of those spatulas, so I would hope that this finish would be a lot better with one of those. This outside mitre, I don't know whether I'm the only one in the world that struggles with that, but of all the things within this particular job, manipulating the vinyl to get into that corner was difficult, but this, for some reason, was definitely the most difficult. Just trying to run that that rod down the external mitre, because what kept happening was it kept falling from one side to the other. It was really difficult. With a lot more practice, I'm hoping I can improve, well, significantly. So there you go. 4-day training course is not going to make you a fitter of commercial sheet vinyl. Of course it's not. But the course was so good, gave me a really good insight into the job, and has actually made my mind up. So I'm definitely retraining now as a fitter at 57 years old. I'll probably be the only fitter at 57 whose knees are still okay. Shoulders, elbows, joints, but I can't see that lasting very long. Massive thank you to Steve Lane from F-Ball, and also Chris Langdon from Polyfloor, and also those two organisations as well, F-Ball and Polyfloor, for putting on that course. Absolutely fantastic. If you're thinking of either retraining or you're actually in an apprenticeship at the moment with regard to floor laying, fitting vinyl, definitely book yourself on that course. It is a massive benefit. Please subscribe to the channel, and as usual, if you've enjoyed this particular video, hit the like button. Thank you very much for watching.